Hello everyone. Since this is the first video on my channel, let me introduce myself. I am the Pontificating Pilot. I am a pilot. I'm in my mid-30s. I work as a corporate pilot. I'm an Army veteran. I spent 13 years in the Army on active duty, 2 Iraq tours, 1 Afghanistan tour. I consider Alaska home, although I don't live there right now. I consider myself libertarian. I don't lean right or left hard. I have obviously issues where I lean right, issues where I lean left, and I don't know, I kind of pick whatever has the best argument. I mean, I've changed my views a lot when people have made arguments on how, my opinion was not necessarily the ideal one. So, the video quality of this is not going to be great. I hope to improve that as I make more videos. I'm going to try to do this in one cut. So bear with me. I have 2 sheets of notes and some things up on my screen to look at. And let's get going here. So I'd like to talk to everyone about something that's got minimal attention, but impacts tens of millions of Americans. And in the near future may become very catastrophic. And that's the student loan bubble. Now, I hear a lot of Bernie bots and people on the left talking about the student debt crisis. But what they're talking about is the fact that lots of students have too much debt. Basically, someone went to school, got a degree in underwater basket weaving or 17th century lesbian poetry, and then couldn't find a job with those newly marketable skills that they acquired. So they work at Starbucks and they're a barista, or they work at KFC and they make Kentucky Fried Chicken. Not talking about that. That's a problem and that sucks, and that's a small part of this, but this is a lot bigger than that. This has a potential to bring the entire economy down. So we learned about the housing bubble and the dot-com bubble. Those are the 2 most recent major bubbles that have happened. There's been thousands of bubbles in the past. Basically, the price of something goes up and artificially, and then it kind of pops. So let's compare the housing bubble of 2008 with the student loan bubble that's currently happening right now. So the housing bubble, what happened? Basically in 1995, there was a study that came out that said, hey, banks are unfairly not giving loans to minority families or underprivileged families, which I think was code for minority families. So the banks are like, okay, well, we'll give everybody loans. And so they started giving loans to people who normally wouldn't qualify for home loans. And then to get those people to qualify for loans, they started kind of packaging the loans kind of funny with variable rate interest and all that kind of stuff where, the first 3 years you have your house, the interest rate is like 2%, and then it goes up to 16% or some craziness like that. And in 2006, people started defaulting on their loans like mad. And in 2008, the world economy almost collapsed. So that was kind of a big deal. Well, this is sort of the same thing. So in 1964, 65, something like that, Lyndon Johnson signed a bill that was basically like the GI Bill, but for poor people, and said, hey, if you make less than $15,000, we'll give you money to go to college. But that bill wasn't quite like that. You didn't have to have a lot of money, obviously, but you had to major in certain things and whatever. I mean, it wasn't like free money for everybody, although it was a lot of money. In 1978, Jimmy Carter kind of one-upped that. The Middle Income Student Assistance Act happened that basically opened the floodgates. It was like, hey, we're going to give you money for college. It didn't matter if you were majoring in petroleum engineering or if you were majoring in underwater basket weaving. You both can qualify for a loan. It didn't matter how much money you had. It didn't matter how good your credit is. Just here you go, floodgates open. Government's going to back your loan, and more people are going to go to college. So the number of colleges didn't really increase. And by colleges, I mean colleges and universities and all of that, post-secondary education. The number of schools didn't really increase. The number of teachers or professors didn't really increase that much either. So when more people can go to college that wouldn't have gone to college before, the demand goes up, but the supply is fixed. So the cost goes up. I mean, that's what happened. The government subsidized education and the cost went up. So before we get into that a little more, that's kind of the basis of the bubble. That's how the bubble happened. How much student loan debt exists? Well, the latest numbers that I could find put the total around $1.4 trillion. Trillion dollars. That is an incredible amount of money. To put that in perspective, the total credit card debt in the US is less than $1 trillion. The total auto loan debt, this is every single person who has a car loan combined, $1.1 trillion. So there's more student loan debt than auto loan debt. What's more staggering than that is depending on when you look, somewhere between 11 and 40%, I know that's a big disparity, I found conflicting numbers, I don't know who to believe, are more than 90 days behind on their payments or completely in default. That's insane. I mean, could you imagine, being 90 days behind on your car loan? I mean, your car gets repossessed. Well, they can't come repossess your college degree, so I guess what does it matter if you had to pick one or the other? Pay your car loan, I guess. So degrees are also becoming less valuable. More people get them. I saw a number, I think it was in 2015, there were 1.8 million bachelor's degrees issued in the United States. 1.8 million bachelor's degrees in 1 year. Bachelor's degrees are kind of becoming worthless. Not worthless, I mean, it also depends on the degree, and sometimes you need a degree, like being a doctor, you need to have a medical degree. I'm not trying to talk people out of college. I'm not saying don't go to school. I'm just talking about this crisis. And a lot of skills are learned easily online. So I have a good friend. He lives in Los Angeles and he's a programmer. He's completely self-taught. He might have some college credits, but he did not go to college for any meaningful amount of time. And he has a well-paying job in Los Angeles as a programmer. The company that hired him wanted him to do the job. They don't really care if he sat through a theater class or not. So who do I blame for this crisis? Well, I blame everybody pretty much. I blame the US government, I blame the universities, I blame society as a whole, and I blame the borrowers. So the government, their blame is pretty simple. So basically they started giving everybody more and more and more money. Let's see here. 25% of all money in 1978 was government backed, or all debt used to pay for college, debt. In 2010, I'm sorry, not debt, funding. 25% of all funding that is used to pay for tuition across the board was government backed. In 2010, it was 44%. Let's see, Pell Grants here. So the amount of money that the US government gives as Pell Grants rises about 3% each year. So the government continues to just give more and more and more and more money for people to go to college. And I mean, eventually that's going to cause a whole smorgasbord of issues, but that money is coming from taxpayers. That money is coming from elsewhere. It's money not being spent on other things. And I know education is important and we should spend money on education. I hear that all the time. It's a great investment and all of that. But is it? If everybody's going to school, is it really a great investment? So here's kind of my take on this. College used to be really hard. Back in the day, and I don't know when back in the day was, but back in the day, people used to learn Latin in college. Like everybody who went to college learned Latin. Now I don't even think you need to learn how to write, like be literate in English to graduate college in the US. I mean, that seemed to be my experience. Some of the people I went to college with were pretty low functioning. So if you take what college used to be where the very wealthy or the very intelligent people would go. The wealthy people would go because, they maintain their society and their place in life and all of that. The intelligent people would go and they would learn skills and they would be able to move up and open doors, have more opportunity than they would otherwise have. And so college was generally focused on educating intelligent people. Grading was very different. I mean, it used to be that, most people got C's. A's were for excellence. F's were for failure. Most people fell in the middle. I saw a study recently that said 45% of all grades given in college are A's. So how are 45% of everybody excellent? Obviously, the standard has been lowered. Not only that, but if all of these people are going, inevitably, you kind of have to teach to the lowest common denominator, or else, there's going to be a lot of people failing. So you go to school and you sit through a college class, and if you're a really intelligent person, you may not actually learn anything because they're teaching to the lower intelligent people. And I'm not saying the lower intelligent people are less people. I mean, they're not any less good of people. I mean, they're just less intelligent, and maybe they are a better fit elsewhere and not in college. So the quality of education has declined because of all of this. All right. I said the universities were to blame. Now, the universities are kind of to blame for, letting everybody in. But on top of that, they spend horrendous amounts of money. So, first off, universities exist to make money. That's great if they were in the private sector. But universities are taking all of this money, which I said 44% of all the money paying tuition, is government-backed money, so either grants or loans. So if that's the case, then these universities are basically existing on taxpayer subsidies. And so maybe they're not in the business of making money because that doesn't really work, and universities don't make money anyways. Some interesting statistics that I pulled up. Elizabeth Warren. So I'm not going to harp too much on this, but it's just an interesting story. Elizabeth Warren, in 2 years as a professor at Harvard, made $700,000 for teaching one class. Now, that's a crap load of money. And she was also, at the time, like a member of the Obama administration. She wasn't a senator yet. I forgot what her job was in the Obama administration. I know she had something to do with the bailouts and like doing all of that. And then she was an advisor to President Obama. And she already had a six-figure salary. But then she got paid $700,000 to teach one class 2 years at Harvard Law. So, I mean, I don't know. That's a lot of money. Maybe she was worth it. Maybe that was value added. I don't know. Another thing that's interesting is textbooks. So universities really like take advantage of students with textbooks. Textbooks cost a lot of money, like a phenomenal amount of money. And why? Because students will pay that. So you buy a $300 textbook that you can't resell the next year because that was version 3.61, and now the version 3.62 is going to be what they're using in the next class. So the textbook essentially has no value because it's outdated. And a lot of schools will work with textbook companies to create the specific textbook for the University of Louisville and a specific textbook for the University of Pennsylvania. And so you can't use a different textbook because it has a different ISBN and all of that stuff. It's just kind of a big money-making scam where they're just taking more money from students because the students have to pay it. I guess that doesn't really counter my argument against them making money, but let's talk about them spending money. So the number of administrators since 1987 has doubled at universities, while the number of faculty and students have remained relatively constant. I mean, there's been a slight rise, but over 500,000 administrators nationwide have been added. The UC system is especially egregious. So The UC system budget, UC, University of California budget statewide was $24 billion in 2013. 12 or 11.7 billion of that was payroll. Of that payroll, the University of California had 135,000 staff members. That's staff members and administrators, and 19,000 professors. That is 6.6 staff members per professor. That is insanity. 42, well, in 2013 as well, 42 college presidents had salaries over $1 million per year. And all of this is being taxpayer subsidized. So again, remember, we got all of this money coming in from the federal government, and that amount rises and rises and rises each year. Well, that money is not being used to put out a higher quality product. It's just being used to line the pocket of administrators. Bloomberg study in 2010 said that between 1993 and 2007, spending on administrators rose twice as fast as funding for research and teaching at 198 universities. I mean, they're not spending the money on the products. There was also a number I saw was like $11.5 billion in new construction projects in 2013 or 2014 or something. $11.5 billion in new construction. You go to any major university, there's going to be lots of construction going on. Why? Well, I mean, so when I was at UAA, like they were building 2 different new buildings on campus. One of them was an engineering building. I don't remember what the other one was. And they probably were building more, but those are the ones I saw. And they already had an engineering building. They were just building a nicer, newer engineering building. I mean, the old one worked just fine. This is just costing more money, so students have to pay for it. Another thing I like to point out is sports. Now, I know at the University of Alabama, you know, the football team makes a buttload of money. I got it. The lacrosse team doesn't. The fencing team doesn't. The swimming team doesn't. Yet all of these teams have giant budgets as well. And at some schools like the University of Alabama, it's entirely possible that the number of people that they cram in Denny Bryant, I don't know, whatever that big stadium's called, the number of people that they cram in there could actually subsidize all of the NCAA sports. But I guarantee that's not the case at other Division I schools that just don't have the same kind of, I don't know, history, like the University of Kentucky or something, or the University of Kansas or Kansas State University. You know, it's Division I, and it has a big football program, and I guarantee that their net balance sheet for all of their NCAA sports is in the red. And so, again, their programs are being subsidized by taxpayer dollars. And remember, we got all these people who are going to these universities, University of Alabama, let's go with that. I don't know off the top of my head what the average GPA of a student at the University of Alabama is, but I'm guessing that most of the football players are at Alabama to play football. Going to college at Alabama and going to class is like kind of the secondary annoying thing that happens. So they're at the school, they have to go to school, but they're not spending, or that's not their primary focus, but they also have to pass. So in order to pass, they need to get like, I don't know, a 2.0 or whatever the hell it is. So they're getting their 2.0, and the other people in their class are being taught to that level so that those people can get their 2.0. And again, it's bringing the product overall down. So that's how the universities are to blame. I also blame society. So from the earliest time that I can remember, I was pressured to go to college. Interestingly enough, I did not. I joined the Army out of high school. That probably worked out better for me. But I was pressured, go to college, go to college. You got to go to college. You're going to earn $1 million more if you go to college. And I went to high school in Bradford, Pennsylvania, which is a small, it used to be an oil town. I wouldn't really call it that anymore. It's a small town in northern Pennsylvania. It's a very, very poor area. I don't know what percentage of the population is below the national poverty line, but I'm guessing it's very high. I'm to understand that meth and over-the-counter drugs kind of taken over. Unemployment's pretty rampant there. There's not a lot of industry. There's not a lot of jobs. So the people who live there don't have a whole lot of opportunity. I'm not saying that the people who live there are bad. I mean, I have a lot of friends who live there, and I grew up there, and all of that. But it's just getting out of Bradford is a game changer. And going to college was how you got out of Bradford for most people. So I was told to get out of, or, go to college, you're going to do all of this. And I've also heard people say, like, it doesn't matter what you study. If you follow your dreams, the money will follow, and all of that jazz. And it's just horseshit. It's just not true. Society pressures all these people to go to college, and most of them should not be going to college. So I know this woman who went to college for a few years and dropped out. She was studying some kind of education to be a teacher, and she went to community college for a year and then went to a large private institution for a couple of years and was struggling to pass 200 level college classes. And she wasn't struggling to pass 200 level college classes because she was on like coke benders all weekend and just like partying and all of that. She was struggling to pass because she just didn't have the aptitude. She wasn't a good fit. She was trying, but she was unsuccessful. And so she dropped out. She had tons of college debt and no degree to show for it. And then she found herself a job, and she found a job where she fit in, and she worked her way up, and now she's in management where she works. She is completely debt-free, and she's doing really well for herself. But had she not gone to college, she'd be doing so much better for herself. She'd be 3 years further into her career. She would have made collectively, whatever her student loan debt was, she would have that much more money plus some. So it sets a lot of people up for failure. Then a lot of people go to college and get stupid degrees, just stupid degrees. You get a degree in art. What the hell can you do with your art degree? Be an art teacher? Be an art professor? Maybe be a curator at a museum? That's pretty much it. I mean, what are you going to do with your art degree? What are you going to do with your degree in gender studies? What are you going to do with your degree in psychology? Just a bachelor's degree in psychology. Obviously, if you have a doctorate in psychology and you become a psychologist, that's a different thing. But what are you going to do with all of these useless degrees? So people go to college and get a communication degree or whatever it is, and it's a completely useless degree. So then they have all of this student loan debt, and they have a degree, but they can't get a job because there are no degrees, or there are no jobs for people with communication degrees. I mean, there's a few, but really there's not. So I believe it was in 2014, but I mean, it's probably still pretty much the same. 50%, just over 50% of all college graduates are underemployed, meaning that they either have no job or have a job where it doesn't require a bachelor's degree, or it doesn't require their whatever. It doesn't, it's not, they're not earning their potential. And something like 25% of college graduates end up getting a degree in their field. In fact, if you were to look at like really successful people, I don't remember where it was, but they interviewed a bunch of people and found that 95% of the people at this large firm of some sort, I don't remember, 95% of them said that their college degree helped them in no way to obtain their job. So I mean, they went to college, and what do they have to show for it? So society pressures everybody to go get a college education, but this isn't the 1960s. In the 1960s, if you went to college, you were set up pretty well. In 2017, that is just not the case. And with that, there has actually been a decline in enrollment since 2010, I believe. 2010 was the last year. Yeah, 2010 was the peak year, and since then, the amount of people going to college has dropped about 2% a year. So that's like 400,000 students nationwide are electing to not go to college, which, I mean, I kind of applaud. Excuse me. So the last people I fault are the borrowers. Now, here's the thing. I fault the borrowers for a couple of reasons. Number one, you took out a loan and you got a useless degree, and that's completely and totally your fault. You're a grown-up. Unless you went to college when you were 14, you're a grown-up. So you made poor life choices. Now you have to live with the consequences of your poor life choices. It's not society's fault that you made poor life choices. It's not society's responsibility to bail you out. However, I do think that's going to happen, unfortunately. Now, not everybody who has a degree, not everybody who has a bunch of student loan debt has a useless degree. I know another woman who is a veterinarian and has just an obscene amount of student loan debt, but she also has a good salary, and she's paying off her student loan debt, and she wanted to become a veterinarian. She became a veterinarian. It's expensive to become a veterinarian. You need to have a license and a degree and all of that stuff to become a veterinarian. So, it wasn't a waste of money for her. And so I'm not lumping everybody who has student loan debt into that category of you screwed up. But if you are that person who works at Starbucks and has your little hipster mustache with your gender studies degree and your $70,000 in student loan debt, and you blame it on the man, well, it's not the man's fault. It's your fault. It's nobody's fault but yours. And unfortunately, I do think that we all are going to pay for this. So what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think there's going to be a massive government bailout. Over the next few years, I believe universities are going to start going bankrupt. Probably a large percent, maybe 10, 20% of universities are going to start going bankrupt. And when that happens, the degrees that you got from the universities are going to become a lot less valuable. That's going to affect a lot of people. So now you have a degree that's even less valuable, but you still have to pay back that loan because the government, back to them being at fault, made it so that, yeah, you buy a house and you lose your house, you can file bankruptcy and that'll go away. Buy a car, you can lose your car and that'll go away too. Rack up $100,000 in credit card debt, you can make that go away. Can't make student loans go away, not going to go away. So what I think is going to happen, the next time a liberal president is in office, which very well may be 2020, we'll see, I believe that person will pass with Congress. Obviously, it's Congress, but that person will spearhead and pass legislation that's going to reduce dramatically or erase a lot of student loans. Where's that money going to go? It's going to get absolved by the public debt. So now we're going to add trillions, because it's going to be trillions by then, trillions of dollars into the public debt. And that's going to cause inflation and all of the same stuff that happened with the crisis in 2008. It's going to be very bad. So another number that I wanted to mention earlier, let me see if I can find it here. I wrote it down. The cost of colleges. This is just interesting. In 1980, the average public university four-year degree cost $55,000. In 2013, it cost $140,000. In 1980, the average private institution four-year degree, no, private was $55,000, public was $36,000. The average public university four-year degree in 2013 cost $96,000. That's an increase of 300%, while the median income has more or less stayed the same at about $30,000. In 2004, the nationwide student loan debt was $300 billion. As I said, in 2017, it's $1.4 trillion. So I mean, since 2004, the amount of debt outstanding has increased by almost 4 times. Almost 4 times. That is just outrageous. $1.1 trillion since 2004. I guess that's pretty much everything there. So what do I recommend people do? Pay off your student loans. Don't go to college. I got in an argument recently with this woman who I like. She's nice. She's sincere. And when I mentioned that I don't think people should go to college, she like lost her freaking mind. She explained to me that college was the best time of her life and that racking up her hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, because she's also a veterinarian, was totally worth it and all of that. And, you know, maybe for her it was. But she couldn't understand how I could recommend that people not go to college. First off, we need people who are plumbers. We need people who are electricians. We need people who are janitors. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being a plumber or a janitor or a cashier. There's nothing wrong with anything that you do. Whatever career or path that you take, you know, own that shit and do it. But sometimes people are better fits for, you know, working with their hands. David Rowe, he is that his name? The Dirty Jobs guy, David Rowe? Either way, he's out there, you know, touting this stuff. And I mean, he's not wrong. These people are good, hardworking people. And oftentimes they make really good money. I guarantee being a plumber is more fruitful than getting a degree in gender studies. You don't have to go to school to be a plumber. You can do on-the-job training, apprenticeship type stuff. You could go to like some kind of trade school and and do that as well. Trade schools are great. Go to school and learn to become a welder. Go to school and learn to become a heavy equipment operator. You know, these are good paying jobs. I'm a pilot. So as it turns out, I went to college for a little while and I don't have a degree. I don't need a degree to be a pilot. I need a degree to work at the major airlines. I think that's going to change at some point. I do have an associate's degree, I lied, but I don't have a bachelor's degree. I never finished. I went to school and got what I needed and then went out the door and got a job. And then getting a job turned out to be more productive than going to school. So then I just stuck with a job. You know, there's lots of things that are trades that, and I would consider piloting a trade. I wouldn't really consider it something that requires a degree, even though there are piloting degrees. Most people like across the world who are pilots don't have degrees. So yeah, I think that, you know, if you're young and you're watching this video, I would strongly consider not going to college. You know, look at the risks and the rewards. Do you want to be a lawyer? Do you want to be a doctor? Something like that? Then yes, you need to go to college. Or are you going to major in STEM? And I don't mean biology. I mean like actual STEM. Then yeah, go to college. You know, some of those jobs are going to still be low paying depending on what your degree's in. If you're in more technical math or engineering, that kind of stuff, you're probably going to do better than if you're in one of the soft sciences. But go to school, learn your stuff. If you want to go to school and learn art history, then cool. Go to school and learn art history when you're 60, because that's a hobby. And you shouldn't be funding your hobby with taxpayer money. I mean, now I'm lecturing you, but seriously, you shouldn't be funding your hobby with taxpayer money. Go to school, learn a skill, get a job. Go to a trade school, learn a skill, get a job. Go get a job, learn the skill. Use that skill to improve yourself. Become an entrepreneur. There's lots of ways to go about doing things. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to incur all of this debt. So that's all I got. Like I said, I look forward to making more videos. I know this one's kind of long. I got kind of carried away there, and it's not a very good flow. Maybe I'll try to do more of the jump cuts that I see people doing, but for right now, I just wanted to get a video out there and see what kind of response I get. So feel free to comment and like and subscribe. I know I have a whole one video right now, but there will be more. All right, I'll talk to you later.